Okay, so let's talk about two new things that came out in Windows Server 2012 and at that time were really impressive, in my opinion. Domain controller virtualization and cloning. But before we begin, I just want to make sure that you have the prerequisites, which is another domain controller besides the one that we created in the previous video. So if you don't have a DC02 yet, then pause the video, create your server, promote it to a domain controller, and then we can continue. So, in Windows Server 2012, Microsoft brought us official support for virtualizing domain controllers. This means that now domain controllers can be snapshotted and then reverted or cloned and any other thing that you could think of that has to do with virtualization. And how does that work exactly? Well, the hypervisor exposes a device from the BIOS that generates a unique ID for each domain controller. And anytime we apply a snapshot to a domain controller or we clone it, for example, that ID changes, and when the computer boots up, the ID from the BIOS will be compared to the one from Active Directory. If they are not the same, it means that such an operation has taken place and some measures have to be taken before the domain controller can really function as a domain controller. So let's quickly see how we can check what ID we have for a specific server. First of all, we can use the getWMI object to see the actual device that exposes the ID to us from the hypervisor. So let's open a PowerShell prompt. And with this command, we can see that the device is named Microsoft Hyper-V Generation Counter. Now again, I want to mention this device is exposed from the hypervisor. So in this moment it doesn't really matter, but in 2012 it was important because not all hypervisors supported it. Let's see also how to get this value from Active Directory for a specific domain controller. So using getAD object, we want to get the MSDS generation ID for a specific server, but we are now logged on to DC02 and we want to get this value for DC01, which is not possible. This is because this ID is stored in the Active Directory database locally for each domain controller. This means that the ID that is stored on DC02 for DC02 will not replicate to other servers. So if I try to run this, it will not work because now I'm on another server than DC01. But if I try to get this value for DC02, then it will work because I'm local to this server. Great. So this is it for the virtualization stuff. There's not really too much to see, as this is a means to obtain other features. And one of the most interesting features is that we can now clone domain controllers. What does it mean exactly? So let's say you have a couple of domain controllers already in your environment. You need a couple more. Instead of installing new servers and then doing all the configurations and promotions, you just prepare a server to be cloned. You clone it, start up the clone, and you have a new DC. Prepare it again, start the other clone, you have another DC, and so on. The one thing to have in mind is that a domain controller can be cloned only if it is added to the clonable domain controller's AD group. And in case you have maybe some third-party software or some special roles or features on the domain controller, it might be that those are not supported and you have to add them to an exclusion list. What you have to actually do in order to clone the DC after you add it to the group and you make sure that you don't have any strange software is to generate a clone configuration file. This will tell the clone when it boots up what settings to apply to itself. And to actually clone it, you just stop the reference VM, you clone it in Hyper-V or whatever hypervisor you use, start up the new machine, wait for a couple of minutes to be promoted to a domain controller. Then you can also start the reference machine and you have another DC ready to be used. Let's see how it's done. So I have some commands already prepared. It should not be very hard. First and foremost, we have to add the reference domain controller to the clonable domain controllers group. So we add DC02 to the group, it's added. Now we can run the get add DC clone excluded application list, and this will show us if we have anything that is not supported to be cloned. And we get that we have something, we have this service, which is normal. Get service. And it's the Windows licensing monitoring service. But it's okay because we can run this command with the generate XML switch, and it will generate an XML that will add this service to an exclusion list. Now we have to create a config file for our clone, and in my command here I will set a static IP address for the new clone, so when it boots up it will see this file and it will configure itself with these network settings like the gateway, the DNS server, subnet mask, and I also set a name for itself so I don't have to worry about anything of this sort. We have to run this command. And the clone configuration file has been created. Now we can just stop this machine. Let's shut it down. Now we can just export it and then import it. Export. Let's export it on the desktop. And this will take a couple of minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so after a couple of minutes you should have the machine exported. Mine is exported on the desktop, and now we can re-import it. One thing to note is that when you re-import it will have the same name with a different ID. So first thing we should do is change the virtual machine name. So let's import virtual machine. Where is the folder? The folder is on the desktop. Okay. And you see the name, which we cannot modify. Now, this is a very important thing. You have to select this last option to copy the virtual machine files and create a new unique ID. Basically, create a new virtual machine altogether. We can store the virtual machine in the default location. And one thing to note, the virtual hard disk will have the same name as the existing one. So what we have to do is put it in another place. Let's create, for example, a folder here. This is 02. Now it should be okay. And the machine is being imported in Hyper-V. So check it out. We have two machines with the same name with different IDs. Let's see which one is the new one, and it's easy to check from the settings. This one is the new one. Let's rename the machine to DC03. And now I will start it up. Oh, and before I start it up, strange issues. Let's not mount any ISO image for now. And now we have to wait again a couple of minutes for the machine to fully become a domain controller. Looks like the cloning is done. Now I just want to also power on DC02, just to have it on. And to make sure, I will check on DC01 if everything looks okay. So I just want to see if the machine appears in domain controllers, which it does. And let's ping it with the v4 address, and it works. so everything looks correct. Let's try a PowerShell remoting session. It works. Get AD computer. Yeah, everything looks fine. Now I just want to do one more thing, and that is to clean up Active Directory. And what do I mean by that? Microsoft recommends that you only leave domain controllers in the clonable group when you want to clone them. If you don't need to clone anything at the moment, you have to remove them. So to do that, we will use this command, and this will remove DC02 from the group. And I just want to check if also DC03 is a member of this group. And we can do this with get AD group member, and it is also a member of the group, so we have to remove this one also. I had a feeling I will need this. Now we are done. In the next video, I want to go over the Active Directory recycle bin. Even though it was new in 2008 R2, it got some interesting improvements in 2012. So if you enjoyed this video and look forward to the next one, like, share and subscribe, and thanks for watching.